Bishop, I'm going to be very frank with you. The Anglican Diocese of Toronto is going around closing all the poor parishes like the one we have here. This is dishonesty of the highest order.
On arrival in Bethlehem, the inconvenience became a nightmare. There was no room at the
New Year's Day at St. Clement's Anglican Church. George Okorapa is about to lead a revolt. A fight to save his Anglican Church, and maybe even the entire Anglican Church in Canada.
We are objecting to the closure of this church. We shall continue praying here, even if the Anglican Diocese of Toronto comes and throws us out. We shall pray on the street.
The Diocese of Toronto wants to shut St. Clement's down. They've given many reasons: a huge debt, an unsafe building, but that's the least of the problems. At St. Clement's and Anglican churches across Canada, many of the pews are empty. A new report by a church member says that in the last 40 years, over half the people have left. And the rate at which they're leaving is getting worse. It went from 13% to 20% in 10 years, the biggest decline of any mainstream Canadian church. And the report says that if the trend continues, there will only be one Anglican left in Canada in 2061. Primate Andrew Hutchinson is the head of Canada's Anglican Church. He's worried about the report, but he's got other problems on his mind too.
A lot of people have been using that 2061 number. Do you think that the Anglican Church will no longer exist after 2061?
Certainly not. No. I have every confidence that this church has a unique role among churches in North America, and it will have that continuing role for as long as you and I live and well beyond it.
And what about people who say, well, the data is very clear that...
Well, I remember when I became Bishop of Montreal saying to them that at the rate of attrition in that diocese, by the year 2005, the last Anglican would be there. Well, in fact, there's still tens of thousands of Anglicans in Montreal, so trends are not utterly reliable. Nonetheless, it is a matter of concern.
Do you have any idea what's causing so many people to leave in record numbers?
The birth rate among Anglo-Saxons in Canada is on a very sharp decline and follows precisely the curve for Anglicans. So the message there is that we're not doing as effective a job as we should be doing with immigrant populations.
But if hope for the church lies with immigrants, they could be in trouble. Many of the new parishioners at St. Clement's come from Uganda. And if Okorapa's any indication, they're pretty angry about how Anglicans are handling church closures.
This is dishonesty of the highest order. And I'm shocked that we have to witness this kind of dishonesty in the house of God.
Okorapa left Uganda and came to Canada as a refugee in 1989. Uganda has been ravaged by over 40 years of political turmoil and violence. When Okorapa turned 11, the brutal dictator Idi Amin took power. After university, Okorapa got political. He was imprisoned and tortured for 6 months. When he made it to Canada, a Ugandan friend told him about St. Clement's.
My very first time when I came here, everybody seemed to be really interested in, this new person who has, come in, and they wanted to know, about my family. And, some of them even asked me if I have food at home. We felt so welcome, and from that day, we felt that this was our home.
Okarapa and his wife were married at St. Clemens, his children baptized there. But even so, St. Clemens numbers and the number of Anglicans across Canada continue to fall.
How serious is this a concern for you?
I wouldn't put it among the top 2 or 3 at this stage. It is a concern, but I wouldn't put it as one of the very major ones yet.
Bigger problems than a record decline? Instead of worrying about empty pews, church authorities are focused on other things. In June at an international meeting, Canadian Anglicans weren't allowed to participate. They're in trouble over the blessing of same-sex unions.
And so our decision was that we would come to the meeting but not participate on the floor and not ask questions. That's still a difficult thing for me to say.
Some blame the church in Africa for the punishment. The majority of Anglicans in the world are now African. They hold the power.
In a number of countries within the Anglican Communion, homosexuality is a serious crime that is punishable by severe sentences in prison or worse. And it's a very difficult thing for them to hear that members of the Anglican family hold a quite different view on this.
Okarapa finds it difficult.
The blessing of same-sex unions, should not be permitted. But that's my personal opinion. It will probably divide the church more than it has divided it today. I think we haven't seen the end of it.
And the church's problems don't end there. There's a lawsuit over abuse at Aboriginal residential schools.
The lawsuit is $25 million. And I think 2 years ago, your office was about $1 million in debt, and you've had to lay off people. How has the residential school lawsuit affected the church?
That's been an enormous strain on a number of our dioceses. And trying to raise those funds and meet that obligation has not been an easy matter.
Anglicans have already raised part of the $25 million. It comes from churches like Okarapa's, but St. Clemens doesn't have much to give. They're already close to $100,000 in debt, and they need at least another $100,000 for repairs. Years ago, raising money wasn't a big problem. In 1915, the church had over 1,300 members. But these days, they're lucky to get 50 on a Sunday.
Why do you think your church should stay open?
I come to church, and the church that I come to, the Anglican diocese says we are closing it down, but I've not been involved in the process. I'm just being told that you are being closed down. That is dictatorship, and there is no way I can sit and watch that grow.
When 360 Vision returns, the real reason Okarapa thinks St. Clemens is closing.
We are being cheated. It seems to me there is a hidden agenda.
Homeless, rejected by society, taken to Christian homes in Northern Ontario, deprived, robbed, and believed murdered, missing in Muskoka, coming soon on 360 Vision.
The future of Canada's Anglican Church looks pretty uncertain. In the last 5 years, over 100 churches have closed. Many were just like St. Clemens, overwhelmed by debt, nobody in the pews. In the next 2 weeks, this church will be next.
I'm really shocked. I never thought this would ever happen to St. Clemens Church. It's just like an end of an era. You know, when you've been in this church for 76 years.
You've been in this church?
I was baptized, confirmed, taught Sunday school for over 60 years, married here, my children. A lot of your children I've taught.
That I have already paid for my funeral and made arrangements to have a funeral from St. Clement's Church. I did that about 10 years ago because I didn't think I'd still be living. So there goes that.
That's older photo when they first opened the church.
Yeah, and that was 1913. They opened this one.
And this is the photo here.
And that's the choir from that time.
That's just the choir, all these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sadness is turning to desperation. This week, parishioners try and get the church declared a historic site.
The history is really rich. I mean, we've got these windows dedicated to soldiers from the First World War and families. It's a big part of Toronto's heritage. Even the Gothic architecture is really important.
We have the original tracker organ from the late 1800s. Now they're reproducing these tracker organs, but we still have an original tracker organ. And to me, that is something that you're not going to find in very many churches in Toronto.
There they are, right there.
But it can take months to get a building declared historic, so they've come up with another plan. In 5 years, they promise to pay back the debt, repair the building, and increase attendance.
This is an important focus for the community, so we have to provide services that people will find really useful. A breakfast program for kids at the local schools, a senior center, possibly even a seniors living center.
Turns up again in the Old Testament.
St. Clement's heard back from the diocese, but not about their plan. 3 days before Christmas, Okarapa gets a letter. The Bishop of Toronto says St. Clement's finances are stretched and the state of the building raises safety issues. The church is still slated to close New Year's Day, and now he's appointed a committee to decide if the parish should be disestablished. Okarapa thinks it's a money grab.
But if they disestablish us and the congregation disperses, the diocese can walk in here and sell off these assets.
Christmas Day. Only 1 week left to save St. Clement's.
One would have thought that the diocese would have allowed us to celebrate Christmas, to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, and to celebrate the holy period. But the diocese told us they are closing us during this holy season, which is really very unfortunate.
But Okarapa hasn't given up yet. Assistant Bishop Bedford Jones has shown up. He reports to the Bishop of Toronto. The last time Okarapa saw him, he told him his church was closing. It's rare for a parishioner to take on a bishop, and never in public, but Okarapa's desperate.
Bishop, I'm going to be very frank with you. The Anglican Diocese of Toronto is going around closing all the poor parishes like the one we have here. As a church, we are located in a prime commercial land area of Toronto, and as a result, the Diocese of Toronto would rather close us down and sell the land. The diocese would rather make money than service the needs of the poor community of Riverdale.
Okarapa's right about the valuable land. St. Clement's owns a huge piece of property close to downtown Toronto. It even includes the land surrounding the church. It's worth millions.
I'm not the final decision maker in this. I know you know that, but some people think bishops can wave magic wands and things change. In our system, it's much wider than that, but I will take your appeal.
I'm hoping that this is not going to be the last time you are here, and I'm hoping that as of January 1, these doors will not be closing for good. I welcome you to St. Clement's, and I invite you to take the podium and preach. Thank you.
Thank you, Church Warden. It may be the last time I'm here because, as you know, I'm being transferred to another area.
Actually, true.
But,
True.
yes.
Not only is Okarapa losing his church in a week, but St. Clemens is losing their local bishop. He's being transferred to another parish. The Right Reverend Colin Johnson is the Bishop of Toronto. He's ultimately responsible for closing St. Clemens. Bishop Colin Johnson refused to be interviewed by 360 Vision. But his manager of communications did send a press release. It talks about a woman who's happy her church is closed because the money raised from selling her church went to help another parish. In fact, by selling churches in the last 3 years, the Diocese of Toronto raised $2 million. A few days later, Bishop Johnson changes his mind and agrees to talk. His diocese has been getting a lot of bad press about church closings. He still won't talk about St. Clemens. He wants to talk about something else.
We've just established a new committee on church planting, which is the jargon for establishing new parishes. We continue to be building new churches. You know, the news story is that we're closing churches. The real story is that we're actually building some churches.
One of the press releases I read that only 49% of the churches are sustainable. So that would suggest that 51% aren't.
The church is not dying on the vine. We still have in the Diocese of Toronto 26,000 people going to church on an average Sunday. That's a lot of people.
Why is it fair to take the money from selling a church and give it to another parish?
The Anglican Church is part of a family of churches. Each parish is related to the other parishes, sort of like siblings within a family. So adult siblings have their own responsibilities, but when one dies, the money often stays in the family, usually stays in the family.
Wouldn't it be the Christian thing for you to sacrifice your church so that you can help the larger Anglican family?
This church, we are sitting on prime commercial land, okay? We have a property next door. The money that we would have probably gotten from developing that property, part of it would go to the diocese. And if the diocese came to us and said, the money that we got from selling your property, the portion that we got, we are going to use it for ministry in this area. We are going to use it, so long as it's justifiable. We wouldn't have any problem with that.
What would you say to a parishioner who's angry that their church is closing?
Well, I think that's perfectly understandable that people would be angry because emotions are tied up, family histories are tied up with that. You invest a lot of memory. But we worship God through Jesus Christ, who's a living God, we believe, and we don't worship the building.
What I'm hearing is that they're angry at the way in which their churches are closing, that there's no dialogue, no discussion, no chance for appeal. They even said that you're running a dictatorship. You just come in and close the church and that's it.
That's actually not how it happens. Conversations go on usually for a very long period of time. One of the things is that not everybody is always privy to all the conversations. Conversations often take place at a leadership level within a parish, and sometimes not all the parishioners are hearing it.
When 360 Vision continues, Okarapa threatens his own lawsuit.
Depending on the outcome from the Anglican diocese, we may have no choice but to go to court.
I love that church so much. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know whether I'm going to go back. I don't know whether today is the very last day, like we are told. So it's a sad day. It's a sad day.
What have you heard since the last time we saw you about the closing of St. Clemens?
We haven't heard anything. I don't know if silence is good news.
But Okarapa isn't about to wait around to find out. In a last act of desperation, parishioners have contacted a lawyer.
Why are you alleging that the Diocese of Toronto has committed fraud?
They told us that we are closing you because the building is unsafe. Then when we started challenging them, but the inspectors came and said that the building is old, needs repairs, but it's not condemned. So, it's not in a state where they should close, they should use it as a reason to close us down. It went back to money. So, because they are going up and down, it looks like there is no sincerity. There is something something fraudulent about it, which they haven't come out to tell us.
In 1 hour, St. Clement's Church will be closed. Okarapa's priest doesn't want any trouble, and he wants to keep his job as an Anglican priest, so he refuses to appear on camera. The Diocese of Toronto told him to stop the service halfway through, then close the church and bring the parishioners to another church, St. Matthew's. The deciding moment. Members from St. Matthew's offer to drive anyone who wants to come to their church, but Okarapa hijacks those plans.
We are not going anywhere. We are staying right here.
The parishioners of St. Matthew's leave, and St. Clement's remains. No bishop, no priest. All they have left is their church and themselves.
What is being distributed to you is the order of the service that we are going to follow from now on to finish off this service.
We continue to pray for our witness, our mission, and our life in this community.
Eternal God, graciously receive our thanks for this place and accept the work of our hands for your presence whenever 2 or 3 have gathered together in your name.
Almighty and most merciful God, we remember before you the homeless, the destitute, the sick, especially...
So Okarapa's church is still alive.
Body of Christ, bread of heaven.
For now.
Body of Christ, bread of heaven.
But for how long is anyone's guess? And as for the future of Canada's Anglican Church, if the report about only one Anglican left in 2061 is right, chances are it'll be someone like George Okarapa. For 360 Vision, I'm Kevin O'Keefe.
Next week, the sign says halal. Can you trust it? If you're Muslim, your faith obliges you to eat halal. The problem in Canada is it might not be the real thing.